I am William Wijaksono.
And I'm Safina Tuaula.
We are the representative of Turkey delegates.
We will be explaining about our theme, the significance of youth solidarity in fighting against racism in the perspective of the Turkey people.
In general, most Turkish people will say that there is no racism at all that occurs in their country. However, if we talk with an intellectual, they will say that their country is racist towards several ethnic groups, among them Armenian, Kurdish, and Syrian. The background of their racist attitude towards these ethnics can be separated from the long history of the founding of the Turkish state.
According to the general public of Turkish country, they will say that they are not racist towards those ethnics. They will say that they are only protecting themselves because they see those ethnics as a threat. Their self-protection is what ultimately leads to discrimination against those ethnics. Several studies suggest that their own government have attempted to overcome the discrimination problems faced by these ethnics.
Although when we read some articles about what happened to this ethnic in Turkey, we will find some terrible events that the Turkish government has done to them. The attitude of the Turkish government that not transparently to public also makes it difficult for us to ascertain how the Turkish government treats those ethnics. These fellows seem ignorant about racism in their country. Most of them only care how to survive by their own self. Either way, they are still discriminated Syrians because they think the Turkish economy will be worse because of them.
In 2019, it was said that Turkey is struggling in economy and the unemployment rate stands at 13%. But the government spent 37 billion US dollar into the Syrian refugees. The most concerning case for now is the Syrian refugees. They got discrimination by Turkish people because the Turkish people feel insecurity towards this. And the unemployment of Turkish native people stand at 13%. Government make it worse by permitting the refugees to work.
At the end of the day, it makes the Turkish, our native people, have a smaller chance at getting a job because of the refugees. Another cases that make Syrian refugees become a target for racism is that they are given more privilege by the Turkish government than the native people itself.
With the fund that they got, some of them even stop working and happily waiting for free money from the government. As an example, they got their own debit card that loaded with fund as part of an Euro fund-funded unconditional cash disbursement. Gift is for individuals. So, if eligible family receive 120 Turkish lira monthly person. A couple with 4 kids will typically get 720 Turkish lira.
This is another cause that started them to begin hating Syrian refugees and began discriminating them. A recent survey by Kadir University in Istanbul found that 97.7% of participants were not content with the person of Syrian refugees. In Turkey, this proved that the Turks felt uncomfortable and had an insecurity feelings toward the Syrian refugees, which caused them to begin discriminate the Syrian refugees.
In Turkey, racism and ethnic discrimination are present in its society and throughout its history. This appears mainly in the form of negative attitudes and action by Turks towards some people who are considered as threat for Turkish people. Such discrimination is especially towards Armenians, the Kurds, and Syria refugees. One of the factors racism is Turks could happen is because they felt some insecurity towards others. As for an example, for Armenian case, the Turks do a self-protection because they feel Armenian a threat to them after joining with other countries. The Kurd case, they put a distance between them because some of the Kurd people is affiliated being a terrorist. The last case is with the Syrian refugees that still lasts until today. At first they welcomed them, but now because the government aided them economically while the country itself still struggling in their economy and 2019, the unemployment rate for Turks native people stand at 13%.
What kind of racism that occurs in Turkey and how can that occur? There are various kinds of racism in the Turkish state. There are tribes or classes get racism from both government or Turks themselves. As an example, this incident in Dersim occurred to the Kurdish people, where according to the official report of the 4th General Inspector, 13,160 civilians were killed by Turkish army and 11,818 people were taken into exile. Many Kurdish people were shot to death after surrender, and many women and children are locked up in hayheds and then get burned. And another incident is the genocide of the Armenian that taking place in the Ottoman period. They killed 1.5 million people in the term of self-protection. And lastly, the case and still occur until now is the discrimination of Syrian refugees. The type of this discrimination is, first, the Turks make a distance with the Syrian refugees. But after the time, the discrimination be more violent. From BBC.com, the 9-year-old boy from Syria were bullied by his classmates and end up with he killed himself just because he is a Syrian.
Another case is that some families were forced to seek a document of voluntary return, sending them back to Syria. In July, Syrians living in Istanbul were told to leave the city or be exploited if they were not registered to live there, must also take a Syrian shop and business. This racism occurs because of the unfair privilege given by the government, and the Turkish people do not like Syrian refugees who only enjoy the privilege and fine that have been given by the government. While on the other hand, 32 Turkish soldiers that protecting Syria from Russia was not appreciated by Syria itself. There were incidents everywhere after that happened, like a fight between the age of 15 and 16. They shouted, "Our soldiers are dying because of you," as the case of the Raven.
What can we conclude from those cases? Racism that occurs in Turkey today is already an open secret. Based on the data that already been mentioned, it can be seen that overtime racism cases in Turkey are still happening. One of them is the Syrian refugees. Because of the more privilege they get from the government, the Turks start to discriminate them. The youngsters there didn't even help to. They discriminate the refugees too. This is why solidarity is important. If they can understand each other, racism could be stopped. What do you think about this case of racism in Turkey? Of course, racism is bad and we totally oppose it. But overcoming racism is not as easy as turning the palm of your hands. It needs a teamwork, solidarity, and an understanding of each other. We realize that solidarity is really important in these cases, especially national solidarity. With its political concept of unity of individuals that arise to an injustice or oppression. This means that Turkish people should unite and speak out their mind to the governments about the injustice they get. If they can unite and they get the justice what they want, we sure that this case of racism would not happen. That's all from us. Thank you for listening and bye bye.